So, Patrick, first of all, thank you so much for doing this for the radio show. And
my pleasure.
Can we start really from the beginning? Because I've heard your podcast with Mark Maron, which I love, and I think it was amazing.
Well, thank you.
And I heard that one of the most influential things for you when you were young was when your sister came home with a Dookie CD.
That's right, yeah. Well, she got into the whole punk thing in like 1994 with Green Day, Dookie, and Smash by The Offspring. She had all these cassettes, t-shirts and stuff, dyed her hair green, did the whole thing, you know?
She was the rebel of the house.
She was, yeah, and that was very inspiring to see, oh, well, I can piss off my parents as well if I want to with this punk rock stuff. She only stayed interested in it for a couple of years, but I guess I was young enough that it made a big impact on me.
And those stuff kind of like influence us when we were young. Kind of like there are big things that are important, but not necessarily good when we grow up. We kind of think,
right?
You know,
exactly. Like this whole operation that we're doing. This is a great thing for a teenager to be doing. For a guy like me, almost 31 years old. Well, yeah. I mean, like a lot of these bands playing now are just look like little babies to me. You know, not to condescend them, but you know, it's a young person's game for sure, especially rock and roll. But, you know, so deep in it now, what else can I do? This is my life, you know, this is what I gotta.
It's like something that you pursue because it's vital for you.
Absolutely, yeah. Or, you know, certainly was when I first was getting interested in music as a younger person, you know, teenager and stuff. Very, you know, intense feelings at that time, you know. Things seemed very dramatic.
And your was it your high school teacher? It's kind of like a literature teacher? Kind of was a big influence too for you? Like with the Shakespeare thing?
Oh, yeah. My high school drama teacher, Okie Chenoweth. Yeah. He actually appeared on our first two albums doing a little
with Abraham Lincoln in
That's right, yeah. Well, he was a very, very inspiring guy. And he always told us, you know, his critique of our performance would always be to make it more truthful, more honest, you know, and always to raise the stakes. So we definitely have tried to embody that as much as we can. Truthfulness and high stakes, you know.
And was the name Titus Andronicus, did it came from there? Was like arbitrary?
Well, it was sort of arbitrary when we decided on it. Any band name is just like Shakespeare said, what's in a name? You know? It's just a way to remember what the music sounds like, I guess. But at the time that we started the band, that was like Titus Andronicus was one of Shakespeare's more obscure plays, and maybe a lot of people didn't know what it was at the time when the band started. But since then, it's undergone like quite a critical reappraisal, you know? And there's lots more theaters and universities and stuff that put it on, and it makes it a lot harder for us, honestly, to search on the internet and whatnot for what the band's doing. It's all clogged up with all these theater companies doing it.
But like Aaron at the end of the play, he kind of like promised like this blaze of destruction.
Right.
Was it like the total opposite of what you tried to do with the Most Lamentable Tragedy? Can we make that parallel?
Oh, well, I wasn't thinking too much about that particular play when we made that album, but that album does follow the structure of a Shakespearean tragedy, you know, with having 5 acts and everything, and the climax usually appears in the 3rd act, and then it's all kind of, or like the pivotal turning point. So we tried to take some of those cues, but not so much from the plot of the Titus Andronicus play.
And sometimes people say like there's nothing more to do in rock and roll, but like maybe in the way you approach or you articulate some subjects, there are a lot of things to do.
Right.
Is that what you do?
Well,
that's what I feel when I hear your music.
Well, thanks. But rock and roll and like any kind of art form is just really a vessel to communicate ideas, right? It's just like a package for it. And I always remember something that Mick Jagger from the Rolling Stones said, where he said that in art you can either say something experimental or like forward thinking in kind of a straightforward way, or you can present kind of a very straightforward, like mainstream, boring idea in a more experimental way, you know, and that it just comes down to what you're trying to say. Because I guess in his time, like, there were a lot of bands that were trying to do like far out spacey variations on rock music, but were kind of just communicating like the same old boring ideas. But the Rolling Stones, you know, were maybe talking about some more far out ideas, but doing it in kind of a more traditional rock and roll way. So I guess there's still room for rock and roll to expand in terms of what it's, you know, meant to be talking about. But, you know, as far as like bashing out the same 3 or 4 chords for another 50 years, you know, maybe there's not as much room for variation and growth or something. But I think that it's still as good a medium or an art form as any to communicate whatever it is that you want to communicate, whatever the underlying idea is. I guess. I hope so.
And how do you feel about like the most lamentable tragedies, like one of your most acclaimed works?
Yeah, it's like maybe the second or third most acclaimed.
Okay, I got you since Monitor. I have to say it, but after Local Business, it's kind of like, and you know, all your personal tumult. Like, how do you feel? Do you have to make a choice? Like, do I deal with this personally and exteriorize it through my art? Or do I bend to traditional, you know, treatment or traditional way of more like I don't know, imperative in society to become more healthy mentally? Or do I assume it, try to deal with it, and keep on my creative art? You know, right. You probably had to deal with that, no?
Well, yeah, absolutely. But, you know, I'm here now. We're going to do this show. So obviously I haven't taken quite the, you know, purely health-oriented route. I'm still trying to be creative. But you're right that it is hard to reconcile those two things, you know. And rock and roll is like a pretty good job for a crazy person, you know. Because when people see you screaming and carrying on and thrashing around, you know, they think that that's good. If you try and do that at your office job or whatever, that's not so good, you know. So I'm lucky that I have this outlet and an opportunity to scream all that I want to. But, yeah, like you said, and just kind of trying to exteriorize it, you know, and because I think that it's very unhealthy and detrimental when people don't have opportunity to talk about what's going on within themselves, you know. Not like just talking about it like on stage into the microphone, but just in everyday life with the people in their lives, their loved ones, you know. So I think I'm very fortunate that I have an opportunity to talk about these kind of issues and receive validation about it from the audience, but also, you know, hopefully validate them if they are going through something similar and let them know that, you know, there's a lot of people out there that feel the way that they do, that go through similar things, you know. I try to present that, you know, that I'm just like them.
That's a great like symbiosis between you and is that the point to Shea Stadium, like to create your own stuff, to have a place where you can create it, and at the same time where people can get to you like in a more like almost a community kind of feeling?
Well, I haven't been hanging out there that much over the past year or so, because that's kind of more like the scene back in New York City is like more of a young people scene, you know what I'm saying? And I don't have as much interest anymore in like, you know, being in rock and roll
really
club.
Feeling old.
Yeah, well, you know, I've been at it a lot of years, so, but I don't spend a lot of my free time like going and seeing bands. I get enough of that like rock and roll stuff at work, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's like that George Carlin joke, you know, what does a dog do on his day off? He can't lay around, that's his job, you know? So like on my day off, am I gonna go and like do some rock and roll thing? Rock and roll is my job, you know?
So are you happy with where you are now? Do you want more?
Am I happy? Do I want more? Yes, I want more.
Do you know what more is?
No. Well, I guess I've been, you know, I do think about that a lot. And I guess, like, my fantasy was always that, like, you know, at some point, I wouldn't, like, have to worry anymore about anything. You know what I mean? Or that, like, the whole future would just be laid out before me and all the questions would be answered. And there wouldn't be any more, you know, fear or anxiety about the future. But I kind of think now that nobody ever really gets to achieve that, you know, and whatever strata of success that you get to, like, there's still, you're always going to find something to worry about or fret over, you know, so I don't know. All I want really is to just be able to continue to do it, you know what I'm saying? To be an artist and like you just gotta
rap a little.
Yeah. But you know, like every day that you get to do the art that you want to do, you should think of as being a success, you know. And until the day that you can't do it anymore, you know, gotta be grateful. I try to remind myself this, you know.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was really inspiring. Thank you. Really, thank you very much.
Obrigado.
Oh, thank you.